the Medical AI Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Medical AI Podcast, a 30-minute thrill ride of big ideas. We are Dr. Felix Beecher and Joe McKeating, and we talk to a range of top guests from scientists to industry innovators to philosophers. Counterfeit medications and medical equipment is a huge business amounting to a $400 billion global fraud. And it is also deadly. Counterfeit medications can contain incorrect ingredients and even harmful components. So, how far is it possible to detect this kind of fraud? And how is AI a part of that effort? Well, with me to discuss this fascinating area is Roei Ganzarski, CEO of Alitheon. Roei, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, look, Roei, why don't we start just by you introducing yourself and explaining a little bit about what Alitheon does?
Sure. So Alitheon was created in early 2017, basically to provide a system that can fingerprint things. If you think about why fingerprints are used to identify people, it's because they are unique. Even twins or triplets have different fingerprints. They are persistent, meaning you can't forget them at home or give them to someone else. And they are inherent. They are part of our body. I don't have to do anything to have fingerprints. We have developed a system to do the same thing for things. Instead of trying to rely on a barcode, QR code, label, you just take a picture of the item and it becomes serialized and identifiable and without any risks or additives. So that's what we do.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about the problem that we're trying to solve here, particularly with respect to pharmaceuticals and medical equipment. Could you unpack that a little bit?
Absolutely. So when you think about, I'll always equate this back to people. How do bad people get into places or try to get into places they shouldn't be? Fake driver's license, fake IDs, fake badges, fake passports, and they walk right in. Which is why secure buildings or government buildings will have fingerprint readers to make sure that the right person is getting in, regardless of what the badge says. When you look at the world of pharma and medical, we have a huge and growing problem of fraudulent pharmaceuticals and medical equipment. Now, I say fraudulent because it includes two types of fraud. One is straight out counterfeits or fake. Bad people making pharma and medical equipment look like the real thing in order to dupe you out of your money. The second type of fraudulent goods in the pharma and medical world are gray market items. Imagine expired medicine that someone gets a hold of, changes the expiration date, and sells it as if it's new. Both of those are significant risks, pose big problems to healthcare and to consumers taking that medicine or using that medical equipment. That's what we're trying to solve. The ability to dupe and trick both consumers and medical professionals from using fraudulent goods.
So if somebody bought counterfeit medications, I guess is it kind of pot luck whether they get something that might be completely inactive and have no active ingredients in at all, or whether they get something that is kind of like a clone of a pharmaceutical or a medical equipment that might work actually reasonably well, but it simply hasn't been manufactured by the people who own the patent for the drug.
That's a really good question, and it ranges. We see the whole range, everything from fake items that don't do anything. Like, for example, recently in Europe, there was a huge problem with counterfeit Ozempic syringes. The labels were all great, they looked right, but the actual syringe and what was in it was nothing. It was as good as a placebo. Now, the problem is if you're taking that for weight loss, so you didn't lose weight. If you're taking it because you have diabetes, which is what Ozempic was created for, then you might have a problem because you think you are taking care of yourself. So the placebo effect or the placebo being in the counterfeit is one side of the house. The other are pharmaceuticals that are made close enough to the real thing, but maybe not with the full amount or full degree of the actual components or compounds that are supposed to be in it. That could, in fact, be worse. Imagine a virus getting a weakened element of the antivirus and now fighting to it and mutating. So not only are we not treating the problem, we could be creating a new mutant of this problem by showing something weakened because, again, we wanted to dupe the system and make money. So there's a whole range of things. The other, of course, as I mentioned, gray market with expired goods. Something may have expired. It's real, but it's expired. Has it been expired for a week, a month, a year? Who knows? What are the effects of taking expired medication? Who knows? That's really the biggest challenge is we just don't know what the risks are.
It could be absolutely fine, right, Roy?
It could be, and it could not be. And unfortunately, we may only find out years from now after taking this bad medicine and suddenly finding out it actually had a negative effect.
So now I guess from the point of view of patients, the risk is that you could be getting harmful pharmaceuticals or medical devices or inactive pharmaceuticals or medical devices. From the point of view of the company, it's a bit different. It's hitting your profit line, right?
Well, two things. It's hitting your profit line because you're not making money off of things that you as a, let's say, pharmaceutical or medical device company have invested sometimes billions and tens of millions of dollars to create, and now you're not reaping the benefits of that. That's one aspect of it. But the other is pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies are built on trust, right? When we as a consumer or a surgeon takes a piece of material or medical equipment and uses it in surgery, that logo or that brand has a trust around it that says, this is good to use, and if I use it as I should, there is minimal or at least controlled risk to the patient. But when that brand trust is broken because of counterfeits, gray market, etc., now it raises the question, imagine in the surgeon's mind, in the OR, can I actually use this syringe, this sponge, this scalpel, and will it behave as it should? Or is this a fake? And now I've introduced risks into the OR that weren't there. That hits the trust aspect of these companies, which again, then hurts their bottom line.
Now, I've heard of people accidentally buying, or maybe even on purpose, buying counterfeit medications or pharmaceuticals online through vendors that maybe are, you and I wouldn't have heard of and are not probably very well recognized. Is it that easy to avoid counterfeit medications just by going through a recognized vendor?
Unfortunately not, because the supply chains today, globally in the world of pharma and healthcare, are so diverse and dispersed that things may be coming from India to Dubai to the United States or to London. It's so dispersed today, which means there are a lot of gaps and holes in which bad actors can introduce things. It may be, for example, that a hospital buying pharmaceuticals or medical equipment for use don't even know or suspect that something might be counterfeit because they're buying it from what they think is a reputable supplier. The reputable supplier maybe bought it from a third supplier somewhere else that sold it to them for 10% discount, right, and they assume the paperwork is in order. It's real. You really have a challenge knowing today, at least according to the World Health Organization report that I saw recently, in the, I'll call it the developed countries, Western Europe, United States, 10% of pharmaceuticals and medical equipment could be counterfeit or fraudulent, I'll say. And in the developing world, it could be up to 30%. Think of that. Right here in Seattle, 1 of 10 pills or 1 of 10 syringes or 1 of 10 pieces of equipment being used in the OR might be fraudulent. That with those odds, I'll buy a lotto ticket every day.
And that will shock an awful lot of people, I think. But what does the might be mean there? Because I guess might be could mean is very likely to be, or it could be theoretically possible, but highly unlikely. So I guess, I would also assume that this is a very difficult problem to quantify in general. Is that true? Can you talk to that?
It's true. It's a difficult problem to quantify because we only know of the ones that have been caught.
Yeah.
And if you think of any crime, right, car theft, etc., you only know of the ones that were caught and reported. You don't know of the ones that weren't caught or weren't reported. And so the way these organizations do their statistics is they extrapolate. And so the 1 out of 10, the 10% of fraudulent goods, is it real, not real? Does it actually mean that when you open a box, 1 of 10 pills is fake? No, but it means that it's a high enough percentage that's assumed to be problematic that we really need to solve this.
Yeah.
If it was, 1 in a million, okay, yeah, let's see if we can do something, but let's not all go crazy. 1 out of 10, or even 1 out of, or 3 out of 10, those are big numbers.
It's outrageous.
That we need
yes.
to solve.
And
Yeah.
I think, am I right that I don't think there's very much public awareness of this problem, especially if people, I think, naturally assume if you're going to a hospital, then you're not liable to be receiving, in some sense, counterfeit treatment.
Yeah, as human beings, we are very gullible and trusting beings. If we see a label, if we see a hologram sticker, if we see a paper that goes with something, we believe it must be true.
Yeah.
There's a reason, by the way, companies that want to get some trust when they sell something, they'll have the advertiser wear a white lab coat because it looks
Yes.
so professional. And people the person in the lab coat said this was good, it must be good. So we're very gullible, and the bad actors take advantage of that. Yes, you believe that when you go to a hospital, what there must be real because, of course, the hospital checked. No, the hospital has no way of knowing themselves because they themselves trust the paper that they see,
Yes.
and so on and so forth.
Okay, so look, we've talked about pharmaceuticals already. Could you? There are examples from medical devices as well. Could you speak about that?
Yes. There are way too many examples. One of them that was made public recently was actually with the Johnson & Johnson subsidiary. And this is made public, so I can talk about it because anyone can read about it. Basically, one of the Johnson & Johnson subsidiaries was basically providing material. These are like these special medicated sponges that are used in brain surgery, apparently. It's a fascinating story. And these sponges are put in on top of the brain during brain surgery, and then the skull is shut. And these sponges will absorb the blood so that there are no blood clots, etc. And then with time, they themselves disintegrate. And that allows the surgeons to close up the skull, reduce risk from infection, etc. And the brain surgery can be done successfully. And these are amazing biotechnology type things. It was found a few years ago that a company in Ohio, and of course, by the way, these things, like most medical things, have an expiration date, right? These are biomedical things. They have an expiration date. It was found that a company in Ohio, a reputable, let's call it, supplier of medical equipment in Ohio, was getting expired sponges that were supposed to be destroyed, but were not. They were getting these expired packaged sponges. They were sending them to India, at which, on the floor of an apartment, people would be changing the expiration date. And for those that were really old, they would open the package carefully, take out the expired sponge, which was clearly visibly expired, and put in a regular medical gauze that looked like the real one, shut down the package, send it to a supplier in Dubai, who then sold it back to that very same company in Ohio. And that company in Ohio sold it to hundreds of hospitals in the United States. And then they were used in surgeries.
That's outrageous.
Now, the only reason this was caught is a brain surgery. I believe it was in Kentucky, but I'm not sure. A brain surgeon was doing their surgery. They were about to close, so they were installing or putting these sponges in place. And one of them felt wrong, literally felt wrong to the surgeon. And he said, this must be a bad batch. Let's not use it. They used other ones. And then had his assistant send this back to Johnson & Johnson to say, hey, you may have had a bad batch here. And that launched a whole investigation because they found at Johnson & Johnson, this isn't even one of ours. And yet it was in their package with an expiration date that looked real. And it led to a multi-year lawsuit that found this cross-global scheme between Ohio, India, and Dubai to do this. It's unbelievable. And this is with brain surgery. So these things are happening left and right in the most reputable of hospitals without people knowing, because they trust that they got the right brand. The buyer of the hospital had no ill will. They found that the hospital, like most, wanted to cut costs where they could. And so they said, hey, can I get this Johnson & Johnson equipment cheaper? And they found another supplier that provided this cheaper. And so they bought it. It had the logo. It had the package was real, in fact. except the date was changed and sometimes the content was changed.
And then what do you do with those brain surgery patients? I mean, the mind boggles about.
It's crazy. It's crazy. How many people may be walking around with still some sort of gauze stuck in their brain?
Yeah.
Who knows what that led to? I mean, it's just what greed does
Yeah.
is unbelievable.
Okay, all right. So look, we are clear then that this is a big problem and it's a serious problem. So let's turn to Alitheon. Could you tell us about how you've developed technology to address this problem?
Yeah, so our mathematical founders back in 1994 were the group of mathematicians who developed the image recognition system that mail systems around the world use today. The United States Postal Service, the UK Postal Service, and others use this. If you ever watch these movies of packages and letters running down conveyor belts, something's take a picture of them and diverts them to the right city, London, Manchester, etc. These guys invented that idea or that technology of taking a picture of something, in that case it was mail, and with mathematical algorithms identifying what it is and where it should go. They sold that company about 8 or 9 years ago and then started Alitheon with the same idea of how do you take a picture of something, apply discrete mathematics, not machine learning or any sort of AI, quote unquote, which is a nice buzzword, but discrete mathematics to solve a big problem. In this case, the problem of serialization of items, which allows you to eliminate counterfeits, gray market, trace your products, know the true provenance of them. And so that's what they developed over about 5 years. So this is really what we call deep technology that took a long time to develop. And today we are able to, with standard off-the-shelf cameras, not even, infrared, X-ray, spectral imaging. I'm talking about an iPhone. We can take pictures of items and immediately serialize them. And so our technology is not about finding the fake. It's about identifying the real.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, imagine, CSI or Born Identity or one of the police investigations, and a policeman comes to the crime scene and finds a fingerprint. They don't ask, who was it not, right? Who was the fake? No, they want to know who it was, the one identifier. We do the same thing. We don't try to say this pharmaceutical or this medical device is fake. We say this is real item number 176-3, not -2 and not -4, but -3. And if we're able to do that, then by definition, anything that isn't identified is fake, and things that aren't identified could be eliminated from gray market. Because let's say you took a real pharmaceutical or medical device and changed the expiration date on it. Once I identify that device and take a picture of it, it will tell me the original manufacturing date or the original expiration date by the manufacturer was 1st of June 2024. And so even though the package may say July 5th, 2025, it doesn't matter. I trust the product to tell me what it is instead of the label.
So let's say that I am the owner of a pharmaceutical company and I produce white pills which do something or other. Could you just take us through how the process would work? How you would essentially fingerprint the product?
So let's say you make these white pills, and today at most places in the world, even that white pill will have some sort of logo or thing on it, right, that is supposed to help you identify it. And normally that pill is then put with other pills either into let's say a blister pack, one of those packages that are in bubbles, and then that is put 2 or 3 of them into a box, and then the box is shipped out to the pharmacies or consumers online, etc. Imagine now that on the production line, on the manufacturing line where that pharma company is making the pills, there's an industrial camera, standard industrial camera, nothing special about it, but every pill that goes by, an image is taken of it. And that image is converted by our algorithms to a digital fingerprint, or what we call a feature print, that makes that pill unique to all other pills. Not that type of pill, but that actual individual pill, that actual syringe, that actual vial of something. It makes it unique. It serializes it. Now those are put into a box or into the blister pack. The blister pack, again, could be feature printed, meaning take a picture of that blister pack. Then that blister pack is put into a box. You could take a picture of the box. Now imagine I'm the pharmacist, and I'm now going to give you this box of medicine. Today, I will take a barcode scanner, most likely, read the barcode, and the barcode scanner on this label will say, this is that set of white pills that we made that will go to you. And that's what we all rely on. We open that box, we open the blister pack, and we take the medicine because the sticker on the box said it was okay. Imagine now the pharmacist can take a picture with their cell phone of the box, and it will tell him or her that box is in fact the box that came from this manufacturer. Not the label, but the box. And in it should be two blister packs, blister pack number 17-3 and blister pack number 19-4. And I can now, as the pharmacist or the consumer, take out that blister pack, take a picture of it, and tell me, yes, this is in fact blister pack number 17-4, and in it should be 6 white pills, number 1, 7, 12, 16, 32, and 156. And you can take a picture of the pill, and it'll tell you, yes, this is in fact that pill, and the expiration date is July 2026, so you're good to go.
Now,
that is the process, simply by taking pictures with phones or cameras.
And I think this will blow a lot of people's minds because look, I've never looked at pills that closely, but I'm guessing they must look pretty much indistinguishable to the human eye. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. In fact, they're distinguishable to most regular cameras, except the cameras that we use that have our algorithms applied to them. Again, we use standard cameras, even iPhones or Samsung phones, but our algorithms and the combination of today high quality cameras, even on mobile phones, allows us to actually see the differences between those pills because, in fact, they're not identical. After the Industrial Revolution happened long ago, when people figured out that machines could actually increase productivity multiple fold because they could make multiple identical products one after the other, we also learned as a society that in fact that wasn't completely true. Yes, they increased productivity. Yes, they were able to make multiple products one after the other versus handmade, but they weren't really identical, which is why today, when you look at anything that's manufactured, it doesn't matter if it's a pill, a syringe, a printed piece of paper, they are all designed with what's called tolerances or engineering tolerances. So let's say I take a pill, for that example, or a blister pack or the box. The design engineer might say, that blister pack has to be 4 centimeters wide, plus minus 1/1000th of a centimeter. Why? Because the machine that makes those packs can't really make it 4 centimeters exactly every time. Because the second it made the first one, the blade is a little bit duller. The humidity in the air is a little bit higher. The temperature is a little bit lower. All to make that machine now do the next one, maybe at 4 centimeters plus 0.0001. And maybe the next one is 4 centimeters minus 0.003, and so on. Now, from a quality perspective, as long as these blister packs, pills coming off the line meet that band of authorized quality, the 4 centimeters plus minus X for sake of documentation or sake of example, the quality control system will say, these are good. They, in fact, look identical. They behave identical. They're the quality that we design, ship them out. But we are able to, with our algorithms and a standard camera, see the small nuances, the flaws, the features of the manufacturing process, not the flaws of the product, but of the manufacturing process that, in fact, put their stamp, if you will, on that pill. They make them unique. In fact, the same flaws or features of manufacturing to be found on 2 identical products has the probability of 1 to 3.5 trillion to be the same. So de facto, they are so unique that makes it that pill. And that's what we rely on to make the digital fingerprint of that individual pill and then identify it.
And so to stick with the example of a white pill, what kind of features do we mean? Do we mean the shape of it or tiny scratches on the surface of the pill, or what kind of features are we talking about?
So think if you ever picked up a pill, the surface of that pill, it's not, even if it's flat and seamlessly completely flat and matte or whatever it looks like, it really isn't. Because if you were able to take a camera and zoom in really well, you would see kind of like valleys and mountains on that pill. Now, we don't have to zoom in very well, etc. Our algorithms are able to, with that standard camera, see, if you will, those ridges, valleys, hills, the miniature scratches that to the naked eye aren't even there,
Yeah.
but we're able to see them. And again, the aspect of them being there is unique to their process of being manufactured and make that one pill's ridges and valleys different from the other pill that came right after it, those ridges and valleys, and they're different.
Okay, so could you take us through a case study of how this kind of system or your kind of system managed to address some kind of counterfeiting issue?
Yeah, so I'll give you one example. It's actually going to be a very simple example, but we'll call it a product. I can't name the name of the company, of course, but a manufacturing line has our system on it. Basically, they bought some standard industrial cameras, installed them on the production line, and as the products go by, they're imaged one by one, and they were sent off to a customer. Or to the, if you will, to the supply chain, distributors, and eventually retailers eventually got to a customer. And that customer came back to return the product because it said it was a bad product, it wasn't working as it should, etc. And the company, instead of trying to go through multiple investigations and distributor and retailer and what happened and so on, the quality inspector, if you will, pulled out their cell phone, took a picture of that item, and it basically replied, that's not one of your items. It may look like it, but it's not one of yours. The box isn't yours, the label isn't yours, the product isn't yours. And so they asked the consumer, where did you buy this? Oh, I bought this in this store online. And of course, that store online was not any sort of approved distributor, retailer, etc. by this company. They just got counterfeit items. Now, we nor the company, I at least don't know, do they know if that online store knew that they were selling fraudulent items or they also were duped? I don't know that. But simply by taking a picture, that consumer was able to know or be told what you bought is fraudulent. So a few lessons. One, don't buy from stores that at least aren't authorized retailers. That's for any consumer, defense number one. Buy from authorized retailers, distributors that you know. For example, I tell my family, my wife and children, even if you're going to buy cream or shampoo and you're buying it on Amazon, buy it from that brand's store on Amazon, not from someone else who's selling it cheaper and you want to save some money. No, if you're buying, and I'll give you an example, cream from Olay or a soap from Olay, buy it from the Olay store on Amazon, not someone else, the A store, but selling on Amazon, because you don't know what you're getting. At least you're reducing your risk of fraud when you buy from the original manufacturer or the authorized retailer. It doesn't assure it will happen, but at least it reduces the probability of it happening.
Well, it's great to have some skincare tips from you, Roei. Thank you.
Yeah, it's scary when you think about things that go in or on your body that could really have an impact, but only be found out months, maybe years later, at which point it's too late. So those are things that are not worth trying to find a deal, quote unquote, on.
So this sounds like a very impressive kind of technology, but presumably there are limitations with it too. Could you just explain what you think those are?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we know what they are. So I can share that. And I will say, yes, it's a very impressive technology. Of course, I may be biased when I say that. We have 51 patents around that technology, which is pretty cool. So it's very well protected and well documented. And so again, even on that, make sure you're using good technology. But there are 4 things today we don't do. One is powder. The second is liquid. The third is gas. Those 3 things we don't do because our technology relies on the ability to take a picture of something. And of course, I can't take a good picture of a gas or a liquid or a powder because they keep changing by definition of their existence. So it has to be something not necessarily solid, but it has to be something that isn't a powder, liquid, or gas. So that's kind of one aspect. Just to give an example, if I were to look at a vial of COVID vaccine, for example, I can tell you the vial is what it should be. In fact, I can tell you the cap on the vial is what it should be. But I can't tell you that the vaccine inside of it is what it should be. So what we do in that case is we assure that the vial itself, the bottle, the syringe, the cap are all not only correct, but linked together as they should be, which again reduces the probability of the actual liquid being counterfeit to very small. So that's what we do in a case like that. The fourth thing we can't do or we don't do are diamonds and gemstones, interestingly enough. Maybe not relevant to healthcare or maybe to mental health, I'm not sure, but diamonds and gemstones are cut to refract light really, really, really well, which is why they sparkle, right? You just have to look at a diamond in a slightly different angle and it changes color, etc. So it refracts light really well. Again, because we take pictures of things in order to create the digital fingerprint, I could take 3 consecutive pictures of the same diamond and get 3 complete different results back. Now, the way to solve that is spectral imaging cameras, X-ray cameras, etc. But as a company, our goal and our kind of mantra is standard, accessible, off-the-shelf cameras. So, who has at home or even in a mom and pop shop a spectral imaging camera? So we just don't do diamonds and gemstones to start with. Those are the only 4 things we don't do. Other than that, we deal with metals, as I mentioned, bottles, plastic, glass, wood, paper, it all goes.
Okay. Now, people listening may be thinking, well, given that this technology exists, hopefully it's deployed and implemented throughout the whole medical devices and pharmaceuticals industry. How far is that true?
That is not true at all. Okay. In fact, it's very far from the truth, unfortunately. And the reason is we're kind of in this interesting closed loop industry in the case of pharma, but by the way, the other regulated industry are the same, where the manufacturer might say, well, why would I do this if the regulatory body isn't requiring it? The regulatory body said that if I put a sticker on the box, that's good enough.
Yeah.
It's not my fault that bad people are cheating. And so they don't do it. And then the regulatory body might say, well, I can't force a company to do something. I could just ask them to make sure or tell them to make sure that the box they're sending the pharmacist is real. And so you're in this conundrum that everyone basically points the finger at someone else and saying, look, it's not my responsibility. I'm doing what I'm supposed to. And we see this, by the way, not just in medical, we see it in other large-scale regulated industries. And our message is, you should do it because it could save lives. In the case of pharma, it could make sure people don't get sick or, in fact, get better. So that's the reason you should do it, not because the regulator tells you, but we're in this interesting conundrum where very few companies are willing to do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because they were mandated to do so or because they'll get a profit out of it. So we're now in this, if you will, evangelistic or educational phase within the pharma and medical industry to say, hey, this technology now exists. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, it didn't. And so there was nothing else to rely on but these labels, stickers, prints on a box. Today, there is. You can, in fact, avoid the counterfeit Ozempic, the fake Johnson & Johnson or gray marketed Johnson & Johnson surgical item. You can avoid the fake Gilead HIV medicine that's been distributed in the millions. I mean, just appalling behavior of bad people. But now we can say the technology to avoid that, down to the pill and the blister pack, exists. Let's now take advantage of it proactively before a disaster happens.
Now, companies are rather like individuals, right? They tend to operate in their own best interests. And do you think, therefore, are you approaching regulators to try and get this kind of system standard?
We're approaching both. We're approaching, in fact, multiple. We're approaching regulators to say, you should regulate, not, of course, our technology. That would be a ludicrous expectation. A regulator can't say, hey, go use Alitheon's technology. Yes, our technology, of course, is amazing, but I don't expect a regulator to say that. But I do expect a regulator to say to a pharmaceutical company, you must provide a solution that a pharmacist or a consumer can know that the actual medicine they're taking or the actual sponge they're putting inside someone's skull is what you think it is or what it should be. Not because a sticker says so or because a box says so, but because there's a way to identify the actual item. Kind of like saying, when you come into the US Pentagon, I expect you to check that the individual is who they say they are by taking their fingerprint, not by trusting that they got a driver's license that says so. So the same thing, if you want that level of security, you must do so. So I expect a regulator to do that. And what we're educating regulators on is you are now able to do that, and you should expect that be an answer. So that's one side. To the companies that manufacture themselves, we're saying the same thing. Don't wait for the regulator to force you. Why don't you lead the way and set an example for the others that this is the right thing to do and it should be done? So that's the second part. That's the second part that we do. And then we're also doing if you will, consumer outreach, because perhaps if enough consumers say to their pharmacy or to their pharmaceutical or to the regulator, hey, what are you doing to ensure that the pill I'm taking, the vaccine I'm getting, the cream I'm getting is what I think it is? And maybe if those three things collide, we will actually have a safe, reliable, and trusted, and I'll say transparent pharmaceutical and medical industry.
Right. Now, I'm sure that the great majority of the listenership of this podcast are fine people and intelligent and full of integrity, but there may be one or few counterfeiters listening. Could they use their knowledge of what you are doing to somehow try and improve their counterfeiting techniques? And could there be a kind of arms race going on here between you guys and those guys?
No, not at all. And that's the beauty of our system, which is why, again, we have so many patents around it. So if you think of today, just like on computers, right, you have the virus, antivirus, and everyone keeps doing it. Why? Because these are additives. If you think of today, the way counterfeiters work and what they do is they improve upon the anti-counterfeit solutions that companies work on. By the way, today it's anticipated or extrapolated that companies will spend around $180 billion a year to try and fight counterfeits. $180 billion a year, and the problem is expected to be $3 trillion a year of counterfeits. And so it's crazy.
Yeah.
But the counterfeits basically say, or the companies first say, I'm going to create this super 3D hologram sticker that can't be taken off and has my logo. And if you look at it with a certain light, you'll see that it's real. Great. That's a proxy added to the box. Now, the counterfeiters will say, oh, well, I have a few solutions. One, now that I can buy one of your stickers, I'll just create a similar sticker. Many times it's made in China, where the original stickers are made to begin with. And so, not a big problem.
Yeah.
They'll either make a similar sticker literally in the factory next door to where the original sticker is made, or they'll find a way to get their hands of the original stickers or original box and simply change the contents. So counterfeiters rely on the fact that we all trust the label or the sticker or the barcode that's on the packaging. But what we do is we actually ensure not that the label is real or the hologram is real. We ensure that the contents are what they say they are. Now, the only way to counterfeit that is to make, let's say in the case of a pill or a syringe, a Zepix syringe, again, to use that same example, to make it identical, including all of the unseen flaws and features of the manufacturing process. But we already know that the same real machine making these syringes or pills can't make them identical because of the physics of the process. And so even if you took another machine, in fact, the same machine, you can't make identical items. And that's what we use to distinguish. And so there's simply no way to fake an item. In fact, I would say if someone's able to design a machine that can make that 4mm blister pack exactly 4mm every time, they have a much bigger nest egg or bunch of money waiting for them on designing the flawless manufacturing machine. But that doesn't exist.
Right. Well, Roei, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff. It's completely different to anything that we've discussed before on the podcast. So thank you so much and good luck with Alitheon. I hope that you are very successful, and I'm sure you will be.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about this, because this is a real unfortunate problem that's growing everywhere.
Thank you so much, Roei. Talk to you again.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye then. Thank you for listening. This has been the Medical AI Podcast. We are Felix Beecher and Joe McKeating. Ping us on LinkedIn if you have any ideas on new guests. See you next time.